state. Which is
He was there again tonight, watching me through my window as I pretended to sleep. He's been coming to my window every night since I came to this place. He thinks I don't know he's there. He thinks he's clever, but I see him. I feel him. When he watches me, I'm stiff as stone. My heartbeat races, I start to sweat, and my blood runs cold, but I never move a muscle. Sometimes, he puts his hands on my window, his breath fogging the glass. Sometimes, I can hear him crying. His intentions are sinister, I know it. He started to come in my room now. He sits in a chair by the foot of my bed, breathing heavy breaths, polluting my air. Sometimes he will mumble things. Sometimes he hums lullabies. Sometimes he just cries. Recently, he took a big step. He came into my room and looked at my paintings, touched them. He touched my paintings. Then he pulled up a chair and sat at the foot of my bed, just watching me. I never look at him directly. I know if he sees me open my eyes, he will get me. I've started to hear his whispers. They're too faint for me to understand, but I know they're there. I feel the pure evil in his voice. It scares me, and I hate being afraid. Something must be done. I started to leave him messages. I would place them at the foot of my bed for him to find. Leave. No more. Stay away. But when I wake up, my messages are gone and replaced by his own sick, demented words. I'm here for you. I won't go. I need you. It burns my stomach that this man will not understand. It gnaws at my bones that he still chooses to come to my room every night. He thinks he can just get away with it. But I grow tired of this little game we play. Last night, I made sure to steal one of my art scissors and brought it to bed. I hid it under my pillow, pulled up my covers, and closed my eyes, listening, waiting. He came to my window. He put his hand on the glass. He cried for a moment. Then he entered my room. He looked at my paintings, touched them again. He pulled up his chair. He sat and watched me. I waited. He started humming lullabies again. He stood and paced around the room, sobbing. He walked to the side of my bed, leaned down, kissed me on the cheek, and I drove my scissors deep into his throat. I didn't look at him. I knew he could still get me. But I heard as he choked on his own blood. I heard him fall to the floor, grasping his neck, gurgling and gasping for air. Before he went still, he said one thing. Why? Large men broke down my door. They ran to the dead evil man and took him away. Then they took me away. They strapped me down and put me in a padded room. I don't understand why. I can't paint. I can't hang my art in here. Eventually, a man who said he was a doctor came in. He sat at the edge of my bed like the man at my window. He pulled out his clipboard and spoke. Mrs. Rutger, I'd like for you to explain to me why you did what you did. What brought you to your actions? Do you recall your thought process? Wasn't it obvious? I stopped the evil man from coming into my room and watching me. I saved myself from being taken by him. The doctor stared at me for a moment. Mrs. Rutger, I'm afraid you're not quite understanding what's happened to you. You've been in a terrible car accident in which you lost your 3 children. Because of this, you had an extreme mental breakdown and were admitted to Shining Pines Mental Health Facility. You've been here for quite some time. In fact, your husband has been the only one in your family to come see you since you arrived. I stared at him blankly. Mrs. Rutger, I don't know how to say this, but your husband was the man you've just murdered. Melody was my high school sweetheart. I first met her in PE class after I'd slipped and hit my head playing handball. She was the first to run over and ask if I was all right, and I swear I fell in love with her that very moment. It wasn't long after that we were a happy couple. We spent nearly every day together. Our chemistry was a concrete bond, and our love was unfathomable. But it still felt like I got hit by a train when she told me she was pregnant. We were so young, 19 and 18 respectively, her being the older one. We discussed at length about whether or not we should keep the baby. I was fully against it. We had so much of our lives left to live. Places to explore, experiences to have, countries to visit. Having a baby at such a young age would erase those possibilities away, potentially forever. Melody was an angel, though, and she decided regardless that the life of our child was more important than our own. After all, we made the decision to make love, knowing the possible consequences, and she was absolutely right. So we had our first son, Brandon. Money was tight. Both of our families thought poorly of us for being negligent about using protection and being safe, so we received no help from them and got married in private. But we still managed to move into a small, run-down apartment, get crappy jobs, and begin our lower-class adult lives at the ages of 20 and 19. After what felt like an eternity of struggle, we were finally starting to steady ourselves and live somewhat financially stable. The hurricane of emotions I was experiencing, anger, frustration, hatred, despair, was finally subsiding. Then Melody unexpectedly became pregnant again, this time with twins. The only way I can describe how I felt: hollow. I was a shell of a man, an empty husk going through the motions in autopilot. I didn't even feel the hurricane of emotions this time. I felt nothing. I couldn't wrap my head around how this could have happened. I'd been so careful since Brandon. So careful. One day after work, I was sitting in my living room, drinking a full glass of bottom-shelf whiskey. Brandon was sitting in my lap, playing games on Melody's phone while she was in the shower. My mind was still reeling from shock after hearing the news. I barely heard him when Brandon held the phone towards me, asking why his game disappeared. "Sorry, buddy. What's the matter?" I asked. "My game is gone, Daddy. Bring it back." I took the phone from him and looked at the screen. A banner notification must have appeared, and he'd accidentally clicked it because it was open to Melody's email. Normally, I'd never even consider looking through Melody's things, but something in the message caught my eye. Winking face. The email was from a Samantha Smith. It read, "Hey, Melody. Sorry, it's been a while since we last spoke. I know you're probably eager to see me again soon, after last time. Let's set something up for this weekend?" My stomach started to burn. I've never heard of any friends named Samantha Smith. I took a gulp of whiskey. "Daddy, can I have my game back now?" I had forgotten he was there. "What? Oh, sorry, buddy. But it looks like Mommy's phone is broken right now. I'm going to try and fix it, okay?" "Aww," Brandon said as I placed him on the floor by his toys. I tried to look at past messages with this Samantha Smith, but there was nothing in any inbox. My stomach started to boil. I decided to email Samantha back. "Hey, Samantha. Not to worry, I understand how life gets. How about we meet for coffee tomorrow night, and then we can continue where we left off last time?" Almost immediately, Samantha replied, "The usual place? You know I'm looking forward to it as always, baby. You really know how to have a good time." I could feel the veins in my forehead throbbing. My heart was racing. My blood ran hot through my body. I felt emotion again. I felt a raging anger exploding inside me. Melody was cheating on me. The twins. I knew I'd been so careful. I knew it. I downed the rest of my whiskey as Melody was coming out of the shower, holding her belly. The sight disgusted me. Yet still, I wore the mask of the emotionless husk that I had been. "Hey, sweetie, how's Animal Planet?" she asked. "Brandon and I are learning how jaguars can attack and kill crocodiles," I said somewhat stiffly. "Oh, that sounds very exciting. Brandon, do you like jaguars?" "Yeah," he exclaimed. "You know what would be really fun? Let's go for a late-night car ride adventure," I said. "You mean it?" Brandon perked up. "Right now. It's pretty late, darling." "Don't call me that." I know, but I just think it would be fun for us to do something sporadic and exciting as a family. Don't you, Melody?" "Well, I suppose you're right. Let me get dressed." She took Brandon to our room to change him into his pajamas, and I poured another full glass of whiskey and downed it. We got in the car and everyone buckled in. "You okay to drive, honey?" My rage pulsated. "Don't call me that." Yeah, I've only had one glass, I promise," I said with a half-assed smile. We rolled out of the driveway and down the winding Pennsylvania roads. The anger inside me was coursing through my body. Samantha Smith. Samantha Smith. Samantha Smith. After a long, uncomfortable silence, I couldn't hold it back any longer. "Melody, would you call yourself a faithful wife?" I asked coldly. "What? Of course, Thomas. Why would you ask?" she responded hesitantly. I knew it. "Who's Samantha Smith, Melody? Who's Samantha Smith?" The shock and terror were obvious on her face. "Please, Thomas, not with Brandon in the car." But it was too late. I was already off the rails. I was blinded by white-hot fury and rage. "Who's Samantha Smith, Melody? Who's fucking Samantha Smith? Who's fucking Samantha Smith?" Everything went dark. I woke up alone in the hospital. When a nurse finally came in my room, she explained that a deer had run in front of our car and drove us off the road. We flipped 3 times down a steep hill until finally smashing into a large tree. Brandon didn't make it. The twins in Melody's stomach didn't either. Because they assumed the deer caused the accident, they didn't bother checking if I was drinking and driving. I'd been in a coma for a few days. When I asked about Melody, the nurse's gaze fell and tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Rutger, but your wife has had a very serious mental breakdown and is currently checked into Shining Pines Mental Health Facility. I'm so sorry for your losses. I'm so sorry for your wife. I know this is all just so incredibly unfair and awful." She started crying. I closed my eyes and let out a long sigh, almost like flicking a switch. I once again returned to the hollow, emotionless shell of a man that I was before, dead inside. Melody was still alive. I have unfinished business. I slowly opened my eyes and faked a weak smile. It's okay. Thank you for your kindness. But nurse, one thing. When do you think I'll be well enough to start visiting my darling Melody? I'm afraid we've come to the end of our story tonight, my dear Coven members. I would like to thank you for joining me. Leave your offerings at the altar. Before you go, remember, if you pay attention to demons, they will pay attention to you. You are now free to exit the witch's lair.
You've just entered the witch's lair.